I have always been a great reader of black newspapers. And black newspapers have always had the goal of getting rid of race prejudice, of calling to the attention of black people all of the mistreatments that are going on around the country and around the world. I got tired of reading about that all the time. I wanted to be happy some of the time. And I thought I wanted a magazine that would not try to do what they were doing, which they do exceedingly well, but a magazine that would deal with the positive things in life. A magazine that would deal with things that people are proud of, with successes. That was so people in one city could see the success of people in another city and would be inspired to do better in their own city. So Ebony is a magazine devoted to making people feel good, making people proud of their heritage. First time I ever saw a black person in print in a tuxedo was in Ebony. First time I ever saw a black wedding was in Ebony. So we have tried to cover some of the difficulties, but at the end of the day to say, I want to feel good about myself.
Till's death at first had no impact.
They considered his death as basically nothing. And you have to consider, and in the South in these days, the deaths of black Americans did not merit news.
The possibility of a trial or a conviction was also a non-issue.
No whites had ever been convicted for killing blacks.
Within days of his death, Emmet Till's body was found at the bottom of the Tallahatchie River. It was wired to the 75-pound fan to keep it from floating up. When his remains were sent back to Chicago, his mother was torn apart with grief. But the wooden box that held his body had been nailed shut. There were instructions from the Mississippi coroner that under no circumstances was it to be unsealed. But this was Chicago, and Emmett's mother demanded to see her son one last time. After seeing what was left of her son, Mamie insisted on an open casket funeral.
I wanted the world to look in and see. And so that's when I decided to let the world come in and see, because it was something that I could not handle alone.
There were many people lynched and assassinated, but something about the Emmet Till killing, maybe that something was the way people were able to see it all around the nation.
America could no longer pretend that lynchings, the vigilante murders of blacks, were an acceptable or inevitable fact of life. Emmet Till's death underscored 2 points: that things had to change, but also there'd be blood spilled on the way.
That picture of Emmet shows us the ugliness of racism. And because the world was able to see Emmet in that state, that brought on what we call the modern civil rights movement.
In 1955, J.W. Millam and Roy Bryant were charged with the brutal slaying of Emmet Till in Money, Mississippi. As America pointed an accusing finger at the South, white Mississippians who'd previously decried the killing now circled their wagons. They raised $10,000 for the accused legal expenses, and 5 local lawyers volunteered to defend them. During their testimony, Millam and Bryant brazenly admitted to kidnapping and beating the boy, and yet the all-white jury deliberated for just 1 hour and acquitted them of murder. In 1955, this was the way justice was meted out in the South.
Just end up with find them not guilty. So they felt they had a license to kill.
Sometime after the acquittal, Millam sold his story to Look magazine. He admitted to an interviewer that he and Bryant had in fact shot Till in the head. But Emmet Till's death would not go down as just another lynching.
It had just a galvanizing effect, particularly on the black population.
Dr. King would often say honor and suffering is redemptive, and there's power in innocent blood. The innocent blood of Emmet Till exploded and hit the national consciousness in ways that was irreversible.
Nearly 2 months ago, Michael Jackson walked out of a California courtroom a free man, found not guilty on charges he molested a young boy. But now 2 of the jurors in the case say they made a big mistake. Ray Hultman and Emmet Cook sat down for an exclusive interview with MSNBC's Rita Cosby.
The other jurors who are going to be watching this are going to be angry at you. Are you ready for the onslaught?
Yeah, I'm ready.
They can be as angry as they want to. They ought to be ashamed. They're the ones that let a pedophile go.
I see you. And I think this is a woman who feels guilty, who's at home at night. You're probably crying about what you did.
Sure. I sure do. But God has forgiven me, and now I'm going to have to forgive myself. And I will.
If the boy is watching right now, what would you want to say to him?
What would I want to say to him right now?
Do you feel you let him down?
No, I did the best I could with in my surroundings. And I have prayed for that young man every night.
This interview marks the debut of Rita's new show on MSNBC, Rita Cosby Live and Direct. Rita, good morning.
Good
nice
morning
to see
you. Thank you.
So let's be clear here. Both of these jurors believe that they made a mistake, that Michael Jackson was in fact guilty of molesting this young man who accused him of this.
No bones about it. In fact, I said, do you believe he was a serial molester? And they said yes. And it is stunning, some of the things that they say happened in the jury room, some of the things that were said, some of the things that were done, I think will shock people. We all saw, Katie, this sort of unanimous verdict. And many people were so impressed, they saw this jury come out.
That's
seemed
true.
very collegial. We will paint a very different picture tonight. You've got to tune in.
At the press conference, though, they did seem to all get along. They talked about the friendships that were forged during the trial. And now these two jurors say the only reason they voted for acquittal is because they felt pressured by the other jurors. Let's listen to some of what they told you.
Alternate number 5.
Alternate number 8.
Alternate number 4.
Alternate number 6.
How angry are you at the way you were treated by other jurors?
The thing that really got me the most was the fact that people just wouldn't take those blinders off long enough to really look at all the evidence that was there.
So what happened that day when the verdict came down? How bad was the air?
The air reeked of hatred, and people were angry, and I had never been in an atmosphere like that before.
Why were they so cowed then by the rest of the jurors? I mean, they have a responsibility to speak up, to talk with the judge, to disagree with the jurors, and
Absolutely.
Why didn't they?
And we as Americans also say, look, when we put you on a jury, we expect you to do certain things. But I'll tell you, after meeting these two individuals, they gave me a line. They said, you have to walk in our shoes. And I think when you hear tonight, when you tune in, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on MSNBC, got to put that plug in there.
Yeah,
when
you and Chris Matthews.
Yeah, the two of us, we got to promote this. But I also believe when you tune in tonight, when you see these people, I think you're going to have a very different picture. You're going to understand sort of what they went through. We're going to walk you through what was said, what was done, what they experienced. Remember, they will spend 5 months on the jury. Then they're behind closed doors 7 days. 7 days may not seem like a lot of time, but to them it felt like 7 years.
What made it so toxic, the atmosphere, the environment? And she was talking about that a bit.
I think, here she is. She's 79 years old, and I think she said, this is not the way I want to leave my life. I don't want to, she said her heart was palpitating. She was freaked out. She's a great-grandmother. And this is a woman, if you look in her eyes, you see a lot of sincerity. You could tell this was gut-wrenching for her. This was not an easy decision.
But remember, she was the one who said she didn't like the way the accuser's mother pointed at the juror.
And she had that famous phrase, don't snap your fingers at me, lady. Remember
right,
that one as
right.
well? In fact, she just canned the T-shirt, and she's giving the proceeds to feed the children. And she said, look, I don't take back what I said. She said, I absolutely do not like this mother. I was turned off by the mother. I think the boy lied in some cases, but do I think he was molested? The answer is yes, and she goes much further.
Is there something distasteful about that they may be cashing in on their experience?
And you'll see I hammered them about that. I asked them, I said, is it about the money? Is it about cash? And they said, no, there's something much deeper. I think some of the things she says are stunning, and when you look in their eyes tonight, I think you're going to see a very different picture.
Unfortunately, Michael Jackson attracted one profiteer after another. People were always trying to get something from Michael, record Michael, get a photo of Michael, and try and profit from it.